Hello fellow Earpers and welcome back to my Wynonna Earp recap. Today we're going to talk about episode 210, I See a Darkness. And I'm going to start with a small thing that I recognized about the widows. It's not necessarily connected that much to this episode, but bear with me. So the widows are actually symbolizing spiders, which doesn't seem like that surprising, but it got more and more clear through the season. So if you take a look at their whole outfit, the Victorian dress, they have like this big part sticking out of the bum kind of, and that looks like spider bum, right? Then we also have the whole venom thing, and there are a lot of spiders which are capable of either spitting their venom or like poisoning their victim with biting them. So that would be a general thing, and especially the difference between their venom being paralyzing when inhaled and deadly when being bitten is a difference that is also known from certain types of spiders. Then we have this small scene where Jeremy comes to the hospital and unpacks all of his research on the widows on the table, and one of these pages is actually just an A4 printout of a black widow, the spider black widow. Which is an interesting fact. And additionally, we have Greta, the Iron Witch, telling the tale of the widows, which talks about two twisted spider sisters. And then the last thing is that in the episode with the spiders, I think it was episode number 3, I think it was even episode number 2. And in episode number 2, Jeremy kind of analyzes the spiders and says they're spider babies, so they're not the actual spider mamas. And we've been thinking about like the spider mamas for quite some time, but they haven't appeared yet. But maybe actually the widows are the spider mamas, and that's why we've never met like a giant spider in the basement, and we all would have been freaked out. So I think just a small theory about the whole widow thing, or more like a context, which we're talking about. We start the episode with an awesome fight scene. So we have Mercedes, or rather saying the widow Mercedes, coming to Nicole's flat and fighting her and asking her where the seal is. Nicole has no fucking idea what she's even talking about. And then we have Waverly coming in and kicking her ass quite a lot. What I didn't understand is Nicole is kind of crawling towards the gun at the other side of the room, but she hasn't been like hurt in her legs or something. She's been hurt in her ribs, which can be quite painful, but she's crawling, and then the moment she sees Waverly's hurt, she jumps over the couch if nothing hurts. Like, it's a bit confusing from the acting wise what actually happened. Yeah, and then she gets bitten and the widow disappears, and we have Waverly talking to her saying like, oh baby, don't die, don't die, don't die, which for me is a bit confusing since they didn't really know about the venom being there. Like, Waverly couldn't necessarily know that there's a poisonous venom in the bite of the widow. And additionally, nobody in this show knows proper first aid, right? Nicole's grabbing her wrist and bleeding, and the only thing Waverly does is hold her and not getting a first aid kit that is probably somewhere. Calling the emergency services, right call, but also kinda, it was weird. Like, for me it was weird because also Waverly immediately assumed that she's dying from a simple bite into her arm. Like, we've had far more horrific types of hurt in the series and people survive. On to one of my favorite characters this episode, Sheriff Nedley. Randy Nedley was like the hidden gem of the whole episode. We start with Wynonna talking to him about this favor she has to ask from him, which is super, super important, but in the moment where she asks, we don't really know what it is. We know that it's maybe somehow connected to the situation, but later on we understand that she asked for him to be kind of the keeper of the ring, which he does in a smart fashion. He just puts it in his coffee mug. And sometimes it's better to hide something with not hiding it. So I think Natalie was actually very smart in doing that. And then we have the whole episode, we have the whole kind of part where Natalie is tortured by the widow Mercedes. And I think Randy Natalie is hilarious when tortured. If he's always that fun when being tortured, we have to see that more often in a TV series. But asking Mercedes if she's a witch or a Pokemon, that had me cracking up so much. And then we see in the end when Wynonna comes and frees him that he actually has been so scared. He like kept his mask on, but he telling her again and again that he did not tell the widow anything kind of showed me that how much in shock he actually was at the end of this part. And also we have this, before I forget, we have this part where he is in front of the hospital talking to Waverly. We find out that he secretly really loves Nicole's cat, and he's also very friendly to Waverly, and he's trying to navigate a situation that's a bit weird for him as this like old white man, and then dealing with lesbian relationship drama. I think he was a bit overwhelmed by that. Also we see Nicole's cat, which has been named, I think, in fanfiction, and they just took it over into the series and it became canon, which is kind of fun. I thought the cat would be more grey, but I also go with a ginger cat. Then we have in the hospital before Waverly and Nicole arrive, Wynonna talking to the real Mercedes, the now faceless Mercedes, and that's kind of really, really sad because we see Wynonna almost losing another friend, and Mercedes was very important to her at the beginning of the season as kind of this one friend that was not part of the family or Black Badge, that was just like her. And now she kind of lost her, and you see Wynonna trying to like humor the situation, but she just can't really. That was a very tragic part of the episode. Going on to the whole way hard drama. Of course, Nicole's about to die because of the venom. That's like maximum drama anyway. But then this like random wife of Nicole's turns up, Shay. And that's my least favorite part of this episode, because I have the feeling it just seems a bit like lazy writing. Like, oh, we have a super drama situation. How to make it even mega drama situation by introducing a secret wife nobody has heard of yet. And they take this kind of TV trope and then I have the feeling just to prove that they can like dismantle it in 10 minutes and it's not important. And that seems kind of weird. It was unnecessary. The situation was already tense enough. There could have been other ways to get this like situation with Waverly. I totally didn't get what the hell was actually going on with that wife. I was just like, nah, whatever. It didn't really touch me as well. I didn't have the feeling that this was a storyline well developed. But in general, especially Dominique's acting was pretty good with the whole situation with Nicole. And then we had this scene with Nicole and Wynonna where Nicole asked Wynonna to not let her become a human just sustained by a machine. And I thought that scene was very important because she knew that Waverly would only forgive Wynonna for doing that. She would never forgive herself doing that or anyone else, but that's why she asked Wynonna to make sure that she doesn't become a burden to Waverly, and that was a very, very strong scene for me. Then we go on to the Rosita storyline. So Waverly blabbers out that Rosita is a revenant in like her panic reaction, which I totally do understand. And then Wynonna goes to Shorty's, and her situation with Rosita has been tense anyway. And then she kind of threatens her with Peacemaker, and Rosita is really, really scared. You can see it. It's also brilliant acting. You really, really see that she doesn't want to die. And then she forces Rosita to volunteer as a guinea pig for testing the anti-venom because Rosita can't die. Just a short explanation, in generally the case is that if you have a venom and an anti-venom, both of them would be poisonous in itself, but they nullify each other. So basically, Rosita has to volunteer for being poisoned with a very strong poison. And then this moment where Rosita says, "You could have just asked," that's very, very powerful, because Wynonna became kind of cruel in this moment. She tells Rosita that she values all she's done, but does she really? I don't have the feeling. I have the feeling that Wynonna becomes a bit a weird character in this episode. Then we have Jeremy's heroic moment where he's a proper scientist and says no, he's not going to do that, and they have to talk about this because this is not who they are. And in the end, Waverly agrees with him. Of course, then there's the issue about the seals and the third seal and the widows wanting to find it. And we already start with trust issues between Waverly and Wynonna, because Waverly finds out that Wynonna knows where and what third seal is, and Waverly doesn't, so she hasn't told her. And I think that's really big disappointment for Waverly. Then Wynonna says that they have to save Nicole whatever it takes to Dawes, but in the end she's not willing to give up the seal. But Dawes is. That's the interesting thing. Dawes is ready to take the blame for Waverly doing it and kind of encourages her to save Nicole that way, because he also doesn't want to lose Nicole and he knows how much Nicole means to Waverly. So that's a very strong Dawes-Waverly scene for me. They haven't had that much interaction this season yet, but this is like one of these strong bonding moments. Then we have the whole storyline with the Iron Witch. And that was a bit weird for me, because first, it's the worst kind of fan service when you bring back the actress for a very loved character, but she's just playing the like evil twin of the character and the actual character is not there. And why do that anyway? There could have been anyone else being the Iron Witch because Waverly heard about them. It didn't have to be that actress. Even if they're bringing back Blacksmith next episode, I feel kind of weird about that. Then the Iron Witch is super powerful, but we never heard about her, and she now became relevant in like 2 episodes before the season finale, or even like within the whole storyline of the season finale. She just turns up and is super important. And that is kind of confusing, because there could have been more character development for a second big bad. But it's was the same thing with Willa in the first season, so we see parallels again. But the interesting thing about the deal with the Iron Witch is that we see Waverly having a choice between waiting for the anti-venom and her team, or giving the third seal to the Beth-faced widow and getting the anti-venom that way. And then she thinks there is a third option, which is making a deal with the Iron Witch. But what it actually does, it takes the choice from her, because it just points her to one of the prior options. And since she already made a deal, I think it kind of feels like, okay, then I have to give up the third seal anyway, because she already paid a price for it. So that was for me an interesting like moral dilemma kind of situation. And we do have the last scenes where Greta, the Iron Witch, makes a wish with the like Mazenjok demon. And for everyone who doesn't understand German, because I am German and I get kind of what she's saying, grammar is a bit creative in that sense, but what she wishes for is for her enemy to disappear. And she says her wish is that it be like Wynonna Earp never, and then you don't get the last bit because there's a cut in between, but it would make sense grammar-wise and content-wise that she wishes for the world to be like Wynonna Earp never existed. So just so you know, that's in general what she says. And we're gonna see next episode how it turns out, how the new storyline actually works. I'm not sure what I think about that yet, but we see, because the previews always have been kind of deceiving in the way they wanted to think as, oh, this is gonna happen next episode, and it was something completely different. So I'm not trying to have any expectations and just see what's going to happen, and you're gonna hear about that next week.